We welcome Tim Watts of Bama Online. The Crimson Tide survived Arkansas. I think that's probably the best way to put it. But looked good at times, lots of trouble spots at times. Now Tennessee headed to Tuscaloosa for a game that is pretty huge for both teams because Alabama's still in the driver's seat in the SEC West. Tennessee not out of anything as long as it can keep winning.
Yeah, this season, I mean, I'm not even sure. I mean, you look at that schedule, I'm not sure it's this point of the year. I think it's too early to rule anybody out, honestly. I mean, there's so much football left to be played. Again, Michigan and Georgia seem to have the straightest pass. Ohio State has the loss. But, yeah, I mean, I've never really remembered a time when the game didn't mean something to somebody. I know there's been it's been a very streaky series, but I think Alabama fans always wanted to win and Tennessee fans always wanted to win. And you look at Alabama's angle, just speaking from their angle, after last year, how mad they were. I mean, to lose the game, you saw the celebration, which obviously, is irritating when you're on the other end of it. Plus to lose in the fashion they did. I mean, that was one of the craziest games I've ever seen in my lifetime. So there's a lot for Alabama. And of course, Tennessee's playing well and they want to win that game. And regardless of you're in the college football playoffs or national championship, you want to win every game. You're trying to recruit, trying to get to a good bowl game. I mean, nobody wants to be playing in, December 27th. So there's a lot on the line for both these teams.
So Alabama has a great second quarter. Beginning of the third quarter, not bad either. It felt like they were moving the ball well on the ground, kind of salting the game away. They're up 24-6. And then it just starts to disintegrate. They allow Arkansas to mount a decent drive, and suddenly Arkansas's got some confidence and they're back in it.
Yeah, I mean, momentum. Football is as much momentum as anything. Getting a quick start, recovering from big plays. Producing big plays. And Alabama had that run where they were cruising down the field, 3rd and 3. Ran up the field. You felt like they had a chance to put it away. Ended up calling a pass play and wasn't successful, kicked a field goal. Kickoff, come down, 3 plays, got a punt, get a face mask. And then Arkansas just found something that worked. I mean, you can blame I don't think anybody's blaming the defense, but I give Arkansas credit. KJ Jefferson, that dude is a play. He's a player. He's going to go in there. He's going to compete. He made some nice throws. I mean, Alabama definitely had chances to end that drive. A lot of people talk about the penalty, which kept the drive going, so they should, but they had chances to end that drive and just didn't do it. And then Arkansas executed when they had to, made some nice plays, and ended up putting back-to-back touchdown drives together.
And then the Alabama offensively, the left tackle issue, they tried a couple different options. Landon Jackson was just dominating on that side. And Tim, Caden Proctor's the number one guy there, and probably seems like he's going to stay there as the number one, but he's a true freshman. Came from Iowa. It feels like maybe you got to give him a little more help until because I mean, you look at him, he's going to be fine. Like he's going to be a really good left tackle, but right now as a true freshman, it feels like they got to help him a little more.
I mean, you're talking about a learning curve. He was facing Iowa high school defensive ends this time last year, and now he's playing SEC defensive ends. I don't care which SEC team you are. You've got a guy that can speed rush. You got a guy that can run, who's athletic, who can get to the football, and they're just sticking that guy over there and letting Proctor work, one-on-one. I think he does things that are good, but with the lineman, you don't notice the good really. If it's not a pancake block, you never see it, right? But you notice everything bad they do because the officials go and tell on you, hey, false start, holding, they're calling out your number. They're texting your mom and you did it, But and you give up a sack. I mean, it's pretty obvious, when you get beat on that edge, what happens. So I think he's going to be fine, but I agree. Maybe somebody to chip over there. I mean, it's a thin line because, you got to run your offense. You can't really tip the help or what's coming and all that. And also Jalen Milroe, he's got to take some blame here too. He's got to stay in that pocket when it's the pocket because he tends to bounce around a little bit and get himself in trouble. So it's kind of, when the offensive line leaks, you see the quarterback, starts hearing footsteps. Sometimes they're there. Sometimes they're not. Jalen's an athletic guy, kind of bounces on his feet, moves around a lot. Sometimes he works himself in trouble. So as a unit, I feel the offensive line's got to get better, obviously. It starts with Proctor. And then as a quarterback, you got to have that pocket presence. And that's what I used to say about Mac Jones is that he's a terrible athlete. He doesn't jump high, he doesn't run fast, but he was daggone he was Justin Timberlake in that pocket. He was always 2 steps up, 1 step to the right. He cleared space. He didn't go very far. He just went to that clear space, which is, what great quarterbacks do. So I think there's more than just one thing at play. Jalen has to improve. The offensive line has to improve. Some of the play calling needs to be a little bit better attuned to what your quarterback can do and what your offensive line is capable of. But I think it's all, it's a work in progress. I think that's what the Alabama football team is. You got a first-year quarterback starter. You got a first-year left tackle. You got a first-year offensive coordinator. So I think growing pains were to be expected.
Well, and with Milroe, it's interesting because you're right. He bounces around back there. He's not, though, for a guy who's a very good runner, he's not looking to run most of the time. Like, he's not looking to scramble unless it's an absolutely dire situation. And sometimes I think that also gets him in trouble too, because he will hang back in there and take sacks where he's fast enough to get out of there. But it's hard because he's probably been trained his whole life like, hey, we know you can run. Hang in there. And he does now. But that passing game is so strange because, you got the guy asking James Franklin at Penn State last week. Did you ever think about not giving Aller a choice to check down? Like, Jalen Milroe, you don't want him to check down. Like, please throw it deep because there's a 50-50 shot it's getting caught, and it's a huge play.
Yeah, with Jalen running, I don't know, there's been talk that he might have some kind of injury. He doesn't seem to have the same gear he did earlier in the year. Maybe he's got a tweaked hamstring, but he's definitely the last couple of games not looking to take contact. They had the quarterback run, power run to the right. He slid down after 8 yards on the 3rd and 3, where he did a good job getting the first, but he just barely got past that first down line, to begin with. So he's definitely avoiding taking some contact. And I don't think it's because he's scared of contact. I mean, he literally looks like Adrian Peterson. He's built, he's a monster. He's going to, inflict as much damage as he's going to take. So it's possible he's trying to protect himself and save from injury. But also I know he sees himself as a pocket, passer, pro-type quarterback. So I think all that kind of factors in. But you're right, his run has been a little different the last couple of weeks.
Well, and if he is hurt, that is something to be very aware of because we have seen Alabama's next 2 options at quarterback. Yeah. And that's a bad deal if that winds up having to be what they have to use. So they probably do need to protect him as much as they can. But this Tennessee team coming in, they seem to have gotten things straightened out. They lost to Florida, couldn't run the ball in that game, but 2 offensive linemen were hurt. They've run the ball much better. 9 yards a carry against UTSA, over 5 yards a carry against South Carolina, 4.7 against Texas A&M, which may not sound like much, but that's a really good defensive front to be doing that against.
Yeah, I think Alabama's been really good against the run. Tennessee, I think Tennessee, you look at their fans' reaction to some of the games, and it's a little bit similar to Alabama, right? I mean, they're not dropping the same bombs that Jalen Milroe is, but the lack of a consistent passing game at times. They've obviously focused on the run, which you don't really expect after seeing Tennessee last year where they had just a dynamic passing game. So I think they're going to run the ball, try to run to be successful. If Alabama is able to stop that run, and they've been good so far this year, I think it's really going to cause a problem for Tennessee. If Tennessee's able to run the ball and ground it out, it's going to put Alabama in that position where they're going to have to, try to limit them to field goals. And they're also going to have to score in this game. I thought Tennessee's defense did a good job. They got a little bit of problem for Alabama coming off that edge. They got some heat coming there. But I think if you can get to that back end, you got a chance to make plays. But again, you got to protect your quarterback and give him some time because we've seen when he's got time, he's going to sit back and find one of those guys usually works herself open. We saw that. Yeah. So it's a good matchup. I think Alabama, I predict Alabama to win this game, but I think Tennessee is a formidable opponent. I think they got a good coaching staff, and I think they've got a talented team.
Yeah, I thought Tennessee did a great job up the middle against Texas A&M. They were all over Max Johnson from the inside. Now that's Alabama's a little bit stronger up the middle on its offensive line. It's the edges that you're more worried about. But yeah, I can't wait for this game because as exciting as that atmosphere in Tennessee was last year, I'd imagine the Alabama fans probably pretty excited about this. It's interesting because they did not seem particularly pumped up for Arkansas, and I get it. Arkansas comes in on a losing streak, and Alabama jumped all over them. So it is the typical Nick Saban complaining, student section, taking off. My guess is they're sticking around for Tennessee because they want to see people smoking cigars afterward if they win.
Well, I can tell you the difference is, a couple of times over the last few years, they would say, hey, who's our biggest rival? That was the discussion that you really didn't see. And you had people saying that, Tennessee wasn't one of them. I bet you ask them now, they feel like that they're back to rivals. I mean, you win, as many games. This game's been streaky. I've been on the other side of it. I've seen Tennessee run off some, and I had a couple of brothers that were Tennessee fans. And, I've seen both sides of this. But I think Alabama fans definitely being up for this game. And I mean, Alabama, that was a super emotional game in Texas A&M, and they were feeling themselves, and they should. That was a tough win against a tough team in a tough place. And they also put themselves in a hole several times. Then next week, you've got Tennessee coming up, primetime 2:30, and then you got LSU. And in between that is an 11 a.m. start against Arkansas. And I think most of us know Arkansas. You look at their schedule, they've been super competitive. They're not getting – I know they've lost 5 in a row now, but they've been in every single one of those games. Other coaches will tell you they were probably, happy and lucky to get out of there with the win. So, it's kind of that mix that you knew it could happen. But it's hard. The average fan's probably looking, going, oh, they've lost 4 straight, 20-point favorites. It's 11 o'clock. I'm going to miss this one. But, obviously it was a much tougher game than anticipated.
So Nick Saban just going berserk at the end of the game because it just felt like they were very sloppy. And it was the sort of things that drive him crazy there right at the end. I would imagine that probably allows him to reinforce some things early in the week that may be helpful. But it's weird because I actually thought the post game he was calmer than I thought he'd be. I thought there'd be some lectures. I thought there'd be some very pointed comments, but maybe saving those for the team meeting.
I mean, I think that reaction at the end is, how in the hell do you get a false start when we're on the kneel down? I don't think that was a test of. I mean, I've got kids and I've seen them do stuff, and you're like, how does that happen? I think that was more at the end. Like, we can't even kneel it out. You know what I mean?
It's like Terrion Arnold was telling us, how many times have I told you? And that is really for Nick Saban, he's every dad in America.
Yeah.
When you've said it 4 times.
If you've told your kid to make their bed every morning and then on the 8th morning they don't, you're screaming, how? Why? You know what I mean? So I think he was like, how in the heck did we not be able to take this knee? So I get that. I've enjoyed him being more energetic. What's funny is the team likes it. I mean, Terry Arnold had a field day with the fact that Nick Saban was yelling at him. I don't think the majority of those players take it personal. No. And, you got that when you're a coach that loves when you've got a lot of good stories to tell, one bad story is never going to override those good stories for the most part. I'm sure they've got a lot of compliments. I'm sure Nick Saban has been super complimentary of a guy like Terry Arnold. But if Terry Arnold can't kneel it out, if he jumps off sides, I got a feeling he's getting yelled at.
Well, he got an earful. I forget what play it was. It was in the 4th quarter, but he came off and just got ripped to shreds. And he told us last week, we talked to him on the show last week, he and Kool-Aid sit there and crack jokes with Nick Saban all day in practice. Because remember, Nick is with the DBs and he's right there talking to them the entire time. And Terrion said that their goal usually is try to get him to laugh every time, every chance they get. So it actually seems like this team has pretty good chemistry.
I agree.
When you think about it. And I think maybe that's what's allowed them to overcome some of this sloppiness is they like each other, they work well together, and probably gives them some makeup that allows them to be
some chemistry
together when they need to be.
Yeah, and you see them mimicking some of the stuff Saban said. I mean, Nick Saban said before Texas A&M, and I'm glad to see college coaches taking this stand. Like Dion said, it's just a football game. Relax. I think Saban said, hey, we come here to play this game. Why would we should want to play. That's why you came to Alabama. You want to go to College Station and play in that game. And the kids are repeating that because I think they're taking it as it is a game. And we came to play this game. There's no anxiety. We heard that word a lot last year, more than I've ever heard it. There's no anxiety. You came here knowing Texas A&M's on our schedule. LSU's on our schedule. Auburn's on our schedule, the whole 9 yards. So you hear them mimicking that. You see a maturity. One thing I like about this team, you don't really see them get down. I mean, when they make a mistake, there's not a lot of head pound, dropping their head or pouting or any of that. They all seem to pick each other up pretty good. You see the guys rally around Jalen and all that kind of stuff. I've seen them talk to Proctor. Because it's got to be rough. Again, the kids, a young kid, he's from Iowa. He's at left tackle. Not many guys have done that for Alabama. And he's playing every monster every team's got. So I do think the chemistry's there. I do think they're having fun playing football. I know that'll make some people mad at me, but I do think they like playing football. I think they're having fun out there.
Well, and I wonder if part of that is, unlike many other Alabama teams in the last 15 years, they didn't come into this season expected to win the national title. They're not carrying that. Georgia's carrying that right now. Mm-hmm. They've got to deal with that every week. But Alabama, especially after they lost to Texas, it was like, well, hey, nobody's really counting on us to win a national title right now. Why don't we just go have some fun?
Yeah, I think there's a burden that comes with being the top team. I mean, when you're Michael Jordan, with the Bulls, or you're, whoever's at the top of their game, everybody's coming just to knock you off, right? So I think when you don't have that pressure, I mean, in Alabama's goals in the past have always started at the national championship. That's not normal behavior. That's why you're a dynasty. You know what I mean? Normal is win the West, win the Auburn game, win the West, win the SEC, go to the playoffs. And then you got like 5 steps. But Alabama's whole team was win the national championship. And then if you watched the Bama dynasty closely, winning wasn't even enough. If it wasn't like a beautiful win, it was still a lot to criticize because, and again, that's what a dynasty is. If you like, 41-13 is not enough because they were up 41-3 and gave up 10 points late. You know what I mean? That's the kind of thing you face. And you're right, Georgia's dealing with it. And, and every great program has dealt with that, who's had these kind of runs, and franchise in the NFL and the NBA, all those situations. But I do think, and another thing is Alabama, and I've said this, Nick Saban's got a loss in like every season, but maybe 2. Mm-hmm. He has a loss every year, it seems like. I think they've had 2. I know at Alabama he's had 2. One of them, they had to block 18 field goals against Lane Kiffin at Tennessee. Right. 7-6. You know what I mean?
Baby.
76 team. And the other one, undefeated, they had 2 NBA All-Star game scores to out-survive Florida and Ole Miss that year. So it's hard going undefeated. It's hard winning football games, but I think I think this team likes playing football. I think they like each other, and I think they feel it's a different feel from last year where it was nothing but pressure.
The good news is this game in Tuscaloosa with Tennessee this week, going to be fun. Going to be fun for both teams, and going to be a lot of fun for whichever one of those teams winds up smoking the cigars afterwards. So, Tim, thank you so much.
No problem, man. Anytime, Andy.
Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.